What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and in honor of Air Max Day, I'm designing 3 different versions of the Nike Air Max 1. If this is your first time watching a video in the If I Design series, or you're new to my channel, basically what this series is that I'm an industrial designer with about 5 years of professional experience and a passion for sneakers. So what I wanted to do with this series was, rather than review sneakers like I usually do on my channel, actually redesign sneakers the way that I would design them if I had the opportunity. The first 2 If I Design videos that I did were to design an off-white Air Jordan 3 and also to design my own version of the Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 V3. I had a blast making those 2 videos, and based on the reception, it really seems like you guys enjoyed them too. And I can't thank you guys enough for supporting the channel and checking out those videos. It really means the world to me. And because of that, I've decided to do another If I Design video, this time around tackling Air Max Day and the Air Max 1. I originally wanted to do a video on the Air Max 97 because, at least visually, that's my favorite Air Max model. However, so many people have done different versions of the shoe, and there have been so many collaborations on the Air Max 97, especially recently, I just feel like that model's done to death and I want to do something a little bit different. So the way I'm going to lay this video out is going to be a little bit different than the previous If I Design videos. Basically, the end goal of this video is to have 3 different finished concepts of the Air Max 1. Rather than completely redesigning the shoe, I'm just going to take the base Air Max 1 and sort of add on it, and maybe sometimes add materials or change up some paneling, but mainly just change colorways. I've got 3 themes for this sneaker already in mind, so without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So the first concept or theme that I wanted to play with and experiment with is one that's not too deep, but it should be a lot of fun. And that is the newspaper headline theme. So I printed out these images as kind of references for the concept. I obviously am not going to use the actual names of the newspapers because, you know, you can get in trouble for that, but I still think it's a really fun concept. And my plan is to just plaster the sneaker with like fonts and logos and colors and things like that, because I think that would just be such an interesting look. So the way that I've set this up is that in order to save time, I've already sketched this Air Max 1 so that I can work off it as a template. So rather than re-sketching the whole shoe every time I want to try a new concept, I'm just going to use this base layer, drop the opacity, and sketch over top of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is drop the opacity a little bit, add another layer, and we'll get started. So I don't really have a plan of how this is gonna look or how I'm gonna map it out. I did do sort of a test sketch on Twitch, so if you guys happen to catch that, you have some idea of how this is gonna look. If you guys haven't seen my Twitch channel, make sure to check it out, twitch.tv/Seth Fowler. I do a lot of sketching throughout the week, and it's just kind of a fun place to hang out and get to know you guys. So if you guys wanna check that out, there's a link in the description below. Also, something else that I noticed from the previous video that I did was that a lot of people were asking about the different tools I was using in those videos. So I've put links to all the different tools that I'm using, like this Wacom tablet and even this Secret Labs chair. So if you guys wanna check them out, they're all linked in the description below. So I do realize that it would probably be easier to type out the text that I want in the font that I want, overlay it over the image, and then erase the parts that I don't want. However, I feel like it's easier for me to visualize the overall look of the sneaker and really get a feel for how everything comes together if I sketch it. And I definitely do realize that it will take like triple the time to sketch it rather than type it, but that's what 8 times speed is for in Final Cut, so you guys won't have to see all that. One thing that I'm definitely trying to keep in mind as I'm doing this is to keep all the areas that could possibly overlap on separate layers. So if I need to go back and erase something or change something, it won't affect the layer above it or below it. So say for example, if I had 2 overlapping pieces of text and they were on the same layer, and then I wanted to go back and change just one of those pieces of text, I would have to erase everything and basically redraw that little section, which would just be a huge pain. This way, as long as I'm smart about it, I should be able to avoid that problem. So at this point, I've got most of the base layers down, and what I'm gonna do now is go back over and add like all the little text that I didn't add before. It's gonna be a third layer on top of these two layers, and hopefully it should bring the entire upper of the sneaker together. Hopefully. I'm not hiding my name in there at all. I don't know what that is. That's crazy. So at this point, I feel like if I add any more text or any more little elements in this upper, it's gonna get a little bit too crazy, honestly. So what I'm gonna do is stop here and actually go in and re-outline the different panels of the shoe so you get some separation. And then I'm gonna add color in the midsole and accent a couple different parts of the shoe just to make them stand out. So for the midsole portion of this shoe, I kind of want to try something a little bit different. Rather than just doing one solid color, I actually want to go in and add sort of a fade from the heel to the toe of the sneaker. And the reason I want to add a fade is because I really like the idea of an oxidizing newspaper. You know how it goes from like sort of a white or sort of an off-white to kind of a yellowish creamish color. So what I'm gonna do is have this sort of white or off-white look on the toe and have it kind of gradually fade into the yellow sort of oxidized look on the heel. And there we go. That's sort of the oxidized look that I was going for. Now I'm gonna take some of this yellowish tan and put it on different parts of the shoe just so it all kind of ties together nicely. And then I'm gonna go in with some shading, and that's pretty much it. I'm wondering if I try it in some of the lower panels, if that gets a little bit too busy or if that actually helps the shoe at all. So let me try that, see how it looks. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if it's too much or... Let me get rid of this guy here, see what happens. Yeah, I think I like it better like this. I feel like the upper's more cohesive this way and it sticks together a little bit better, which is important when it's an upper that's this crazy and this busy. Okay, so at this point, I'm pretty happy with the way the sneaker looks. Now I'm gonna go in with some light shading. It doesn't need too much because it's already a pretty crazy looking shoe, and because it's more of a colorway proof than an actual like 3D version of a shoe, I'm not gonna get too crazy with the shading. But then after the shading's done, I'm gonna go in with a bold outline and really try and make the sneaker pop off the page. So at this point, now that the light shading's done on the sneaker, I'm gonna go in with that really thick outline and then detail out any parts that I feel like need a little bit more work. So that's pretty much it for this newspaper themed Air Max 1, and I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out. I think it's an interesting concept, maybe a little bit busy, but one that I wouldn't mind rocking. I might have hidden a couple March 26 or 326 details in there. One, because it's Air Max Day. Two, because it's my birthday, so I felt like that would be kind of a cool callback to both things. Mainly Air Max Day, but you know. So this next concept I actually thought up while I was in line for another sneaker. I was at a sneaker campout or a sneaker lineup or whatever you want to call it, and I was just kind of listening to what everyone was saying and watching what everyone was doing and taking in the whole experience. And what it really made me think was, why don't I design a sneaker that takes a lot of the elements from those sneaker campouts and those sneaker lineups, those things that we spend so much time in just to get a pair of shoes, and put it into the pair of shoes itself. So the way that I'm gonna lay out this concept is by taking down the opacity on that base sketch that we have, and then sketch over it with some of the added details and material callouts. So the first thing that you usually find at sneaker campouts, maybe not in the summer, but pretty much every other month of the year, is a puffer jacket. For some reason, whatever it is, New York resellers, and I think just resellers in general, love their puffy coats. I don't get it, I don't have one myself, but people are about them. So what I'm gonna do is sort of incorporate that puffy, oversized jacket feel into this sneaker. And the way that I'm gonna do that is actually by extending the tongue itself and giving the tongue a puffy, oversized jacket material. And not only am I gonna have this sort of puffy jacket look on the tongue, I'm also gonna have it on the toe as well, just to tie the entire center of the shoe together. There we go. Now what I'm gonna do in order to remember this detail is call it out with a note. Puffy jacket. The next detail that I want to add is more of a material choice, and that's adding the nylon that you find on those camping chairs onto the back of the sneaker. I feel like you could almost make the entire shoe this sort of nylon chair material because every time you go to a campout, you see at least 10 of them. Something else that you might notice at sneaker lineups or sneaker campouts is that usually the first couple people there, or the people who were there at a certain time, get wristbands. And that's just to show the store owners who actually was in line first. So I think I'm actually gonna try and incorporate that into the shoe and add that as a midfoot strap. So the next detail I want to add isn't directly inspired by sneaker lineups, and that material or detail is suede. So I want to actually make this entire panel right down here at the bottom of the upper a nice long pile suede panel. And then finally, the last detail that I want to add was actually a suggestion from someone on Twitch for a completely different concept. And that detail is a clear Nike swoosh, maybe out of a thin piece of plastic or something like that. And that's to imitate or mimic the glass that you look through at these sneaker stores when you're drooling over that pair of shoes in the window, that pair of sneakers that you're hoping to buy if you're far enough up in line. And in order for this detail to work, I think the swoosh actually has to sit underneath the other layer of material, so it'll be inset into the shoe rather than coming out like it usually is. Cool, so that's pretty much the entire concept. So now what I'm gonna do is block in some color. So I think for the color scheme of this shoe, I'm gonna try and go for a more dull, earthy feel because it's usually in urban environments like cities and places like that. So there will be some pops of colors like on the neon wristband and maybe on the nylon chair material, but mostly it's probably gonna be more dull like browns, blues, and maybe even some grays. So the first color I'm gonna add is gonna be sort of the puffy coat color, and I think for that I'm gonna go with sort of a dark navy. I think for the suede, I might actually go for like sidewalk gray. And if I don't go for sidewalk gray on the suede, I think I might do it on the midsole. But let me try it on the suede first. Now I might actually go for some khaki for the midfoot of the shoe. Not exactly sure why, but I'm sure you see some khaki or some desert camo at campouts. I'm sure you do. It's gotta be there. Now for the clear Nike swoosh. Next up, I think I'm gonna go with the wrist strap band, and I think I'm gonna go a little crazy with it and make it a neon orange, because I feel like neon any other color just wouldn't look that great, and I want it to stand out like a wrist strap, so that's what I'm gonna do. Maybe I won't make it neon, maybe I'll make it just sort of a pale orange. I feel like that would look better. A lot of those chairs that you see at campouts are usually like bright blue or bright red or something like that. Again, I don't want to go too crazy and too bright with this because I feel like it might stand out too much. So I'm gonna try sort of like, I guess, dark royal blue and see how that works. And if it doesn't work, I'll just try different colors. Let me try a green because I see a lot of those green chairs too. Honestly, I feel like maybe I should go orange because that would tie in with the strap at the front of the shoe. That might be the best bet. Yeah, it's not bad. We'll We'll leave it for now and see what happens. Now that most of the important elements are filled in, I think I'm just gonna try and fill in the rest of the shoe as best as I can, hopefully making it look somewhat cohesive. At this point, now that I've got all the colors blocked in on the shoe, I'm not totally in love with it yet, but I'm getting there, and obviously I can change some colors as I go. What I'm gonna do is outline all the different panels in black to sort of clean up and refine the shoe. So what I ended up doing for the suede texture is, rather than actually sketching it, because I started to try and sketch it and it just was gonna take way too long, so what I did was I took a suede texture that I found on Google, dropped it in here, masked it out, dropped the color saturation so it's just straight up gray, and that's pretty much it. I am gonna mess with the opacity a little bit though, because I feel like right now it is a little bit too intense of a detail. So at this point, I feel like we're just about done with this shoe. What I'm gonna do now is go in with that thick, bold outline and then of course finish off the final details, and this concept's done. So here it is, the finished shoe, the shoe that I'm dubbing the Camp Out Air Max 1s, or the Air Max 1 Camp Outs, or whatever you guys want to call it. I'm pretty happy with it. The colorway could still use some work, I think. It could benefit from a couple more days just like looking over and tweaking and things like that, but for like a 1 hour concept, I'm not too mad at it. Now that we've got the Camp Out Air Max 1s out of the way, let's move into the final concept. So for the final concept in today's Air Max Day video, I want to take the most classic Air Max 1 colorway and try and change it up and modernize it. So my original thought for this concept was to take all the panels on the upper and flip them around so they would all be going backwards, like you'd have a backwards swoosh, the Nike Air would be on the toe instead of the heel. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that probably wouldn't work. So instead, what I'm gonna do is actually block out the colors first on this base sketch and then move them around and free transform them and try and piece together an interesting new concept. So for the Nike swoosh, I realized that on the Air Max 1 it doesn't have a tail, but for this concept I don't want to limit myself to a tailless Nike swoosh. So for this color blocked shape, I'm gonna give it a tail just so we can move it around and see how the tail works in relation to all the other pieces. In fact, I might even thin out the shape of the Nike swoosh on the AM1 just so it more closely reflects the actual logo. So in the same way that I sketched the Nike swoosh in its entirety, I'm gonna sketch all the other panels in how I would assume that they would look underneath the other panels, just so we have some freedom to really move them around. So now that I've essentially got all the main panels of the upper sketched out and on separate layers, now I can start flipping them and moving them around and really seeing what works and what doesn't. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually flip around this red panel at the bottom of the upper. That's something I wanted to do from the beginning, and okay. Well, didn't work as well as I thought. Let me see if I can move that in a way that it'll work. I really like the way this looks, and what I'm gonna do is when I actually go in and finish the shoe, I'm gonna fill in this area down here, well, not that area, but I'm gonna fill in this empty area down here with red and make it look like it was supposed to be there. And I think I actually kind of prefer this sort of triangular shape aiming backwards rather than forwards. I think it gives it a really cool, fast look. Now let me see what I can do with the Nike swoosh. What if I move it backwards? I don't know how I feel about that. Let me actually pull a Travis Scott and flip it and see what happens. I don't hate that. You know what would be cool? If it was coming out of the bottom of the tongue. Like that. Like the Travis Scott a little bit. Now that I'm seeing it without the lines, it's not working for me as much. Let me flip it back, make it smaller, and just have it sit in the midfoot like before and kind of play off this this shape right here. I actually really like that. I like how it sort of plays off this red shape at the bottom and it overlaps a couple different panels. I think that's pretty cool. Here, let me try and make it a little bit bigger, see if that helps. What if I get rid of this back panel and maybe continue this gray panel? Here, let me try that. Let me continue that gray panel to the heel. Not sure how I feel about it yet, but it's different. Okay. What if I don't continue it all the way to the heel? What if it actually terminates somewhere else? That's interesting. Let me actually overlap this guy on top of this guy. Why don't I sketch out how I think this would look? Because I have something in my head that obviously is not coming across too well in this sort of puzzle piece situation. So let me sketch that out and let's see how it looks. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is outline the new panels in sort of a light black just to get a good idea of where everything is gonna be. And then I'm gonna block in the color again just to make sure it all looks okay. Okay, now that we've got all the new panels outlined, let's go in, turn off all the colors. There we go. And then erase some of the original base sketch so we get a better idea of how this is all gonna look. That's interesting. I really want to see it with color to get an idea of really how it's gonna look. So I don't mind this, but I feel like it needs something else, and I also feel like some of the proportions could use a little bit of tweaking. What if the toe of this sneaker had that clear plastic mesh that you find on the Nike React Element 87s? For some reason, I've really started to like that material a lot, and I feel like it could really modernize this sneaker and bring in another element of interest into the shoe. Something else that I feel like is necessary is really fixing up this just janky as hell Nike swoosh. That's not a good looking detail right there. So let me let me go through and fix that. I mean, while we're at it, why don't I go in and change the proportions of this red panel at the base of the upper? I feel like this back area right here is a little bit low. Okay, I feel like I finally got the proportions down and I'm actually pretty happy with the way this looks. I think it still feels like a classic Air Max 1, but it kind of has a modern twist, which I actually really like. So at this point, I guess the next step is just filling in the color. So if you couldn't tell, the reason that I made the background of this sketch a light gray was so that I could actually sketch white over top of it and actually see it. But now at this point, it's time to start throwing in the shading and throwing in the details. So at this point, I feel like I've gotten most of the base level shading down. What I want to add now is a detail that I really like, and one that, you know, I seem to put on a lot of the shoes that I design, but it's a mini swoosh on the toe. I love them. So now we are literally in the final stretch. All I have to do now is add in a couple thin outlines to outline some shadows and some other little details, and then add that big bold outline around the outside of the sneaker to make it pop off the page, and we're done. And that's it, that's the last one. This is the Air Max 1 Revised Modern Classic. I guess you can call it the Modern Classic, I like that. But I honestly really like the way it came out, so why don't we take a look at all three of them together. So finally, here they are, all three Air Max 1s for Air Max Day. We've got the news themed Air Max 1, we've got the Air Max 1 Camp Out, and then we've got the Air Max 1 Modern, I guess you could call it. But honestly, I'm pretty happy with all three of these concepts, and it's really cool to see these all together because they all have such different feels. The news themed Air Max 1 is crazy and it's out there. It's got a bunch going on in the upper, and it's also got some subtle gradients on the midsole, and overall, I think it's a pretty interesting look. The Camp Out Air Max 1's theme is not immediately apparent. You definitely have to know the story behind the shoe to understand all the little different references that are going on in the sneaker. I think my favorite part about the shoe is probably the puffy jacket texture on the tongue and on the toe. I think that's a pretty interesting look and one that I'd love to see in person. And finally, the Air Max 1 Modern, or the Air Max 1 Revised. I think this one's probably my favorite out of the three because it takes the classic look and switches it up a little bit. Overall, I'm really stoked on all three of these concepts, and I hope you guys really enjoyed watching this video. It was a blast to make. I would love to know your thoughts on these concepts and which one of these three you like the best and why, so make sure to leave those comments in the comment section down below. I would also love to know what shoe you'd like to see me sketch next, so also make sure to leave those comments in the comment section as well. But that pretty much wraps up the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe down below if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.